pretty good, man. That was awesome.
Little core. Everybody knows core.
Eric Clapton core. Everybody knows that
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Woohoo.
Hey, welcome everyone to IoT Coffee Talk.
Yes.
Here.
Remember to take Rob seriously at your own risk. And everyone else, we're just here to have fun.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
remember to donate to remember to donate to Elevate Our Kids at www.elevateourkids.org. Yeah, to help bridge the digital divide for kids K through 12 in underserved and unserved communities. So yeah.
Welcome. And look
driving while streaming. Leonard is driving while streaming.
This week I'm driving.
Look at Dad in the car with the
car
seats.
I know, it's horrible.
Wow, you're so relatable. You're just like an average all-American guy, with the family,
Yeah.
But you got that, but you also have that stressed look on your face.
The funny thing is, Leonard doesn't even have kids, but he has those car seats back there. That's the
Yeah, just so that I could get into HOV lane.
That's right.
Yes.
Get some sympathy for the cops when you pull them over. Like,
That's right.
I'm going to my kid's soccer practice. Come on.
I love it. Oh my God. What's going on, Debbie?
Hey guys, just happy to be here.
Woohoo.
Try to keep things together here as the world is kind of wacky, as you can see.
That's this just in. The world is wacky.
That's right.
Wacky, crazy.
Wacky. Well, actually, I had I don't know if you guys recapped this last time, but Leonard and I had a fun time in Taiwan last week.
Yeah.
In Thai fun and some all that good stuff. So
that's awesome. How was it for you, Pete? Was that a good event?
Yeah, it was a great event. We had a bunch of partners at a partner pavilion and met with a bunch of new partners. Actually, I went down to Hsinchu. This is the most interesting part. I went down to Hsinchu at the end of the week. Leonard, after we met, had a friend of mine take me down to Hsinchu, where as TSMC headquarters, MediaTek headquarters. Met with MediaTek, saw the TSMC fabs, with the cooling towers and all that. It was really cool. And then we went out to dinner to his local place, and it was a lamb and noodle restaurant. And basically, you could get either lamb and noodles or noodles and lamb, one of the two.
A lot of options. Yeah.
A lot of options. So I had the noodles and lamb, and but it was good. It was a lot of fun, and that was Friday night, and then I flew back on Saturday. But yeah, wow. It was a busy week. I mean, Leonard, probably you saw his super cool, high quality production video on LinkedIn about Computex. But I thought it was the AI hardware supply chain show where everyone was trying to provide the cables, the handles, the racks, the cooling systems, whatever you needed to build your data center for AI.
Yeah,
and that seemed to be kind of the zeitgeist. And there's edge AI stuff in there, and then kind of PC stuff, but. It's interesting how it used to be such a PC show, and now it's really flipped to, data center AI hardware stuff. And the cooling stuff was really interesting. Lots of fans and tubes and
fans,
oil immersion. Everyone had fans, and and the fans had to be neon colored. By the way, you couldn't just have fans; they had to have different LED lights that changed color as the things were spinning. So it was like every other booth was like. Neon fans, baby.
That's awesome. Yeah, back when it was a PC show, I still have some memory. The early days of building Windows 8 and Steve Sinoski showing at that event, showing off kind of almost like an empty shell primitive beta of Windows 8 running on ARM. Because I
remember that the Windows on ARM.
Yeah. That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. Yeah.
Back when people were still excited about Windows 8 coming out, before they weren't.
Then they quickly became not excited.
Yes, it's like
right after that, I think.
Live tiles.
I know that, and it's still a big, the big keynotes. I mean, Leonard, you were there for the keynotes with the,
most of them.
Jensen and Rick Tsai from MediaTek, and So it's still big thing with Intel and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it felt a little more CES, like CES Taiwan.
Okay.
Leonard, I ended up going to that electronics mall that I always go to.
Oh, cool. How was that?
You bought one of these guys. I got one of these guys.
Oh, no way.
Oh,
awesome.
Saved about $200 off Amazon, by the way.
Are you serious?
Yeah, serious. Non-tariffed.
You shouldn't have shown that. Are you sure? You might get a bill.
That's true.
I get a call from
Donald J.
Yeah.
But no,
I'm gonna need you to Venmo me some money for that.
That's right.
I
need you to eat that tariff. You need to eat the tariff.
Eat the tariff. Be a good American and eat the tariff.
Rob, I love your Trump impression. It sounds just like you.
Yeah, right.
But you have the hand gestures down, man.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. That's how we can tell that you're doing it.
That's how you can tell.
The essence is coming through.
There's a guy on TikTok and Instagram, something, Austin Russo, I don't know. And apparently he was a software engineer, and then he started doing comedy stuff, and he does good Trump impersonations. And basically the takeaway is he said he's making more money doing this comedy thing than he was doing software engineering, especially because he's probably got laid off or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. There's also a gentleman in China who does Trump impression.
China.
Yeah. And he's
much better.
It's really amazing. He goes from his native Chinese language into this Trump impression.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that guy.
It just blows everyone's mind. Like, why?
Oh my God. That's awesome.
So talented.
That's impressive.
Oh,
That's
no,
talent.
he's incredible. He's incredible.
And he's a big guy too. He's got big stature. And,
yeah. But he kind of looks like Little Kim, not the rapper, but the dictator. Yeah. Yeah, which is kind of weird.
But people don't do Kim Jong-il impressions,
Rocket Man. Yeah. Rocket Man.
Anywho. But Taiwan was fun as a recap. That was good.
So you mentioned Jensen. He kind of came, when he just did their earnings, he kind of came out pretty firm about hey, China's going to go whether we're on board or not. And he was a little more openly blasting what's happening,
That's not a lie. That's the truth.
He goes, record earnings, but they would have been even bigger if it wasn't for cutting us off from China.
Well, I mean, you go back 10 years now. I mean, you could argue the whole policy we've had for a decade of trying to sort of restrict technology flow into China has really enabled China, to their credit, to develop a lot of technology on their own and do a lot of cool things. And maybe they haven't caught up, but they've made tremendous advancements now and become self-sufficient without U.S. technology.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but people have to remember the electronics industry have been outsourced, or at least have been seeded in Asia for decades before this big ramp. I was listening to John Daly, the John Daly show, and there was a gentleman, I forget his name is, he wrote a book called Apple in China. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and if you get the timeline wrong, your point of view ends up being wrong. This guy had so many misconceptions and misrepresentations, and it was funny to watch John Daly just riff off of this stuff and rile his audience up on talking points and perspectives that were actually wrong. It was kind of funny to watch this. And so this pseudo expert, so-called self-proclaimed, talking about Huawei and how Apple was responsible for building the tech economy for China. That's not entirely true. Right. He misrepresented Chinese smartphone make phone makers
Yeah.
as displacing Nokia. It's like, no, that's not how it happened, right? Yeah. And so we have to remember that this has been going on for a long time. It started off in Hong Kong, Taiwan,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Where
remember
we
even remember the memory wars in
yeah,
Japan in the 80s? I mean,
right.
Right. Yeah.
All
and in
the
Korea.
all the packaging happens there. Why? Because nobody gave a crap about packaging. That's where you have cheap labor, cheap manufacturing, and that's where it made sense, right?
Yeah.
And so, but speaking of Computex, man, I mean, Taiwan, that event, I think, is a bellwether for what's happening, right? With quote unquote AI stuff, right? Whether it's supercomputing all the way down to the embedded stuff. But it also gives you a very strong impression that everything converges on Taiwan, right? And Taiwan historically has had a legacy in all of this stuff, right? And Foxconn set up factories in China, right? And so these guys on the Daily Show and that guest portrayed it as if left the impression, okay, that Apple manufactures this stuff in China, right? No, they outsource. There's contract manufacturer.
Right.
And
Foxconn builds a lot of stuff.
Right. And so they didn't even mention Foxconn once, which I thought was like kind of ridiculous, right? But it's so much more complex than how people are now relearning in an incorrect way historically what happened. Do you know what I'm saying? And that I think it's actually becoming a bigger problem. And think about how that impacts policy, man.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you have to go back 50 years to be able to tell the story, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a book, Chip Wars. If people haven't read that book, Chip Wars is a good beach read this summer, but it goes back
I don't think that's a good book either. I
don't think so?
I've heard, we just have to be really, really objective in how we look at this stuff, because as soon as you apply a bias, you're all of a sudden off center, and then that's how you lose your bearing on what good policy is.
Yeah, I guess my take on the book was I thought it was pretty factual in terms of where we went from Fairchild and Silicon Valley into memory wars with Japan and Korea, who frankly they figured out how to do better yields than the U.S. and that's where the manufacturing gravitated toward, because they could have higher yields at lower prices for a lot of chips. And I mean, it felt like so I don't want to slam the book. I thought the book was pretty good.
Yeah, Leonard slamming the book, you book burner,
book slammer,
book slammer. My favorite tech book like that around history from a long, long time ago, it did win the Pulitzer Prize, is The Soul of a New Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a classic read if you want to go back to the 70s, the time frame of mini computers and DEC and Data General and those guys, and following the team who built something that was called the Eagle. I think that was the name of the computer. And who would ever thought that step by step building a team and then a team creating a new mini computer, kind of the last death throes, maybe they didn't know it. You never know in the moment that you're at the end of the line of something that was big, because minis were a big deal in the 70s, obviously.
Right.
Great book.
By the way, there's another book you should read. It's called Caddyshack.
I love Caddyshack. I love it.
The definitive history.
Can you do
unbiased history of Caddyshack?
Can you do the dance, like the little gopher?
I thought you were going to do that.
It's funny. A lot of people, when they, obviously we're heavily influenced by yacht rock here, of course. And, a lot of people think of Kenny Loggins as being one of the primary yacht rock people. But that said, I'm All Right from Caddyshack is just as well known as any yacht rock song. And obviously, Kenny Loggins, it's like, come on. It's like, no, it's the Gopher. And of course, his biggest song ever was from Top Gun, which is obviously not yacht rock. So we're kind of blowing
Yeah.
things up there.
By the way, I'll one more book pitch since we're on the book. There's one called Semi Country.
Yeah.
This came out recently, and the subtitle is Trump Storm and the Island of No Significance. Interesting.
Whoa.
But it's really a history of Taiwan and semiconductors.
Okay.
And this guy, Cliff Howe, who I saw speak, there's an organization called CASPA, the Chinese American Semiconductor Professional Association. He spoke there. Really interesting. So if you guys, he wrote this Semi Country. If you guys really want to dig into
That's
Taiwan
cool.
and history, it's a really good book.
I love it.
Very interesting. So yeah, lots of good. Get educated. Get
educated. Have beach reads on semiconductors.
Get yourself educated. Yeah, bring all your chip books to the beach.
I just saw like it was a rerun of Saturday Night Live from like 2000 when Bush and Gore were running, and it was they were doing the debate, and basically they came up, and we're out of time, so you can't do a final whatever talk, so for the final deal, just sum up in one word what your campaign is. And of course, Will Ferrell was doing Bush. He's like, strategery. And then Al Gore was like, lockbox. Do you remember the whole lockbox thing?
Yes, I remember that.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, I just had to throw that in there. It's related to
strategery is one of those phrases.
You realize, Rob, you're giving a history lesson now.
Lockbox.
With everyone's 15-second attention span, that's ancient history.
We're gonna take Social Security and we're gonna put it into a lockbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
There's something newsworthy in the news I want your thoughts on.
Okay.
Which is, I think you guys have heard this. So Jony Ives is connecting with OpenAI, and they want to create some type of device, apparently, maybe some type of necklace, I don't know, that they want people to wear and give all their information. But I want your thoughts on that.
Didn't that seem so well produced, the video that they made? Where the two of them are like sitting at a bar. I mean, here are my thoughts. Who knows what they're actually going to make. You're right. I've seen the necklace bop around the internet thing. If you're really jaded, you could go, okay, whatever, it's 6 point something billion to buy. Basically, there's no product right now ish, maybe. You're buying people, I guess. It's like acqui-hire. Remember that term from a long time ago? Mm-hmm. And so it's like you get Johnny and 50 people, and you start to wonder. It's like, and of course, now that being said, it's all stock, but it just seems weird to me. It's a whole lot of money just for like 50 people to build something nebulous. I don't know.
I think it's totally absurd, and I think it's like we've reached peak silliness right now.
Yeah.
I wish whoever negotiated that for Jony Ive, I would like to hire that person.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, I want that job.
But it is going to be. I mean, he's got like he's got a garage full of humane pins in bins, new in box.
Yeah. People need to remember. People need to remember that. And that was actually a really bad idea.
Really poorly executed bad idea. I mean, it was a double whammy on that one.
I agree.
So
and so was the rabbit, remember? So we need to jog everyone's memory how everyone thought the rabbit was going to be revolutionary because of its price point and blah blah blah.
An extra device that you talked into versus your phone, which you talked.
Yeah. So
I wonder if that's a way of Sam Altman to maybe get some kind of kickback or something. I don't know. It did seem kind of weird to me.
Maybe he had to spend some money, and he had to show that he was doing something and spend some money, and so
doing something. I made the iPhone. I think
the reason why these discussions are very important is people are forgetting about how really important IoT is in the future in terms of how people want to use it. So Altman knows that the companies that have most of the power in data have devices of some sort, right? And so he can't make a phone, right? Doesn't want to go there. Not gonna go into like virtual reality or anything like Meta. And you know that he has this WorldCoin, eyeball orb thing going, trying to get that going in different countries. So I think this is just a way for them to try to get like a hardware play there that also ties in their, data collection aspirations.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what it made me think of when I saw the picture of the necklace kind of floating around? Did you ever read a book here's a beach read, by Dave Eggers called The Circle? A really bad movie was made based on the
Oh,
book.
I forgot that. I didn't. Yeah, Tom Hanks is in that movie. I didn't see it
Yeah,
though.
the book is one of the best books I've ever read. The movie was kind of like, but you're right, it was Tom Hanks. But The Circle was all about, it was kind of this high-flying Silicon Valley thing, all young people, and they're kind of living near where they work and in these dormitories, not to be confused with Foxconn with nets. But the thing is, they all were wearing something around their neck that was constantly videoing and everything 24/7. And there was this notion, it's like it's a bad thing if you're not sharing your life with everyone else and whatever experiences you're having. And anyway, it got really creepy and dystopian and everything like that. But the book was amazing. But it made me that necklace, that pendant, that whatever made me think of The Circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the cautionary tales that we see in some of these sci-fi or like futuristic things, people are trying to turn those into cookbooks now, right? So I think we thought that was a bad idea, but apparently investors think differently somehow.
Debbie, you have nailed it. Every dystopian thing we've ever thought of, made movies about, or written books about, are now recipes and cookbooks for what investors really want the future to be.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I would say if Sam Altman wants to spend some money, the Edge AI Foundation is a great place to park a billion.
Park a billion.
We'll do some good with it.
Just park it.
Just park it.
Yeah.
Get a good return on your investment.
Exactly.
I'm down with that. Yeah, I think brought Jony Ives in to try to design something that people will want to wear. Yeah. But I don't know. To me, it's like an AI medic alert necklace. No?
A life alert.
Yeah.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah.
I spent 6.8 billion and I can't get up. I think
even those folks decided that the necklace wasn't cool enough, so it's like a bracelet now, right?
I don't want to wear a big necklace around their neck.
But going back to some of the stuff Debbie, you and I talked about years ago, there's going to be value in being able to disconnect and just become invisible, right?
Totally.
And to whatever degree a brand and company is able to provide that, what will become a luxury, I think is going to be, it's going to have its own day. Because, honestly, this stuff gets tiring. You have to disconnect. For me, getting off of Facebook and that kind of social media was such a therapeutic relief because I was wasting so much time on that crap. It was unbelievable. And as soon as I detached, I got my life back. And you know what? I don't want anything to do with any of these social platforms. So that's why I'm not even on. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on. I try to avoid WhatsApp
Sky
or WeChat or any of these things or friggin' TikTok. You know what I'm saying? But
like the White Lotus, you had to put your phones in the bag.
What? What was that?
The last season of the White Lotus. Of course, that didn't help them. They still got in lots of trouble, even with their phones in the bag.
Yeah, they found a way.
It's because they became dysfunctional.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, they got all riled up.
Yeah, they were so. Yeah, the reality became the fake thing. Your truth eventually becomes the channel that you engage quote unquote your perceived reality with. It goes back to like the friggin' Matrix stuff. It's crazy.
Uh-oh.
It is.
Go back.
Matrix
I mean,
1.0. It's going to be the answer.
We're gonna have big tinfoil hats we'll wear. That'll be Jony Ives will design this cool tinfoil hat that you wear on your head.
I think that's perfect.
Blocks all the signals.
I love the irony of that. So I am a very tinfoil hat type of person, but I'm not sure I would wear that hat. But yeah.
No, different designs and stuff.
You know what? We should start a company called Blue Pill.
That is not a bad idea.
I think there is already a little.
Actually, technically it should be Red Pill, but
that's right. You get flushed out into the real world and make it back to Zion, right? You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And eat porridge and wear clothes that are dirty and have holes in it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I say I choose the Matrix.
I
don't care. This steak tastes so good right now. Just plug me back into the Matrix. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, you know, the ironic thing is the surveillance capitalism is, you know, it's leading. I mean, surveillance. I mean, they know everything about
surveillance. Yes, monetizing.
Is that the new kind of surveillance to come after the Chinese surveillance communism? Police state?
I mean, if you could, yeah, exactly.
Not just China. There's a lot of countries around the world where there's so many cameras, you wouldn't believe it. So many cameras.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've done some, consulting for companies and stuff, and countries, and they're like, yeah, we have, I mean, thousands and thousands of cameras, and like, you know, so all this data is being collected. And you're right, Leonard, it's a surveillance economy, whether you're surveilling people's actions on a phone or their physical actions in space, their credit card transactions, you know, the idea of like, how do I take all this data and then monetize that surveillance?
Right. And all that, trying to pull it all together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, people are connecting the dots, unfortunately. And, you know, I talk to folks that are like, well, I don't want to do this because I don't want people to know what I'm doing, whatever. I'm like, they already know what you're doing. So it's like,
unless you do what Tom Cruise did in Minority Report and you replace your eyeballs.
That's true. Maybe that's the new Jony Ives thing, replacement eyeballs.
And then get a shot where your face kind of goes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the I did the passport, the entry when you come back into the U.S. They do the facial scan, and you know, you either get a green check and they walk you through, or you get a blue check. They don't give you a red check. That would be too harsh. But you get a blue check. That means go over to this line here. We want.
Hey, speaking of which, Pete, we made it. We made it through.
We did. We made it through back. No one checked my phone. No one confiscated my DJI camera.
Yeah. Wow. Actually, you know, that was like one of the big topics in Taiwan is a lot of people talking about that.
Yeah.
It's you know.
Well, we had a partner of ours in our pavilion who was a recent HBS graduate, and it was still on that visa, and he was like, I think I need to stay here in Taiwan for a while. I don't know if I can come back, because that was right when they were revoking like international visas for Harvard students, and so he was like, I think I need to stay in the hotel for another week or whatever. But yeah, it was like, it's real, and I have we have this event in Milan, by the way, PSA. July 2nd through the 4th, AGI Foundation event in Milan, Italy. I've had at least one speaker say, you know, I've been told not to leave the country, so I cannot come and speak because I don't know if I can get back into the U.S. if I go to Italy. So it's real. It's real.
It's real. And whenever we say something real, my favorite quote always from Bad Boys 2.
There you go.
You know, shit just got real. That's what it's all about. That scene. Martin Lawrence, and they're kind of doing the Pano 360. Just got real.
So, I have a question for Debbie. Debbie, you know, what's your feel for the sentiment around privacy and and I don't know if you want to call it security, but let's just stick with privacy for a moment, because a lot of the work that you've been doing is really helping to set a better mindset and some standards or frameworks for promoting privacy in IoT and other areas. Do you see the sentiment changing?
So, I mean, I think there's been such an aggressive push into even more and more surveillance, right? That people are like, I don't want that. Like, so how do I get less of that? How do I give less? How do I do what I want and not have to do all this other crap? Like, like for example, cars. That's one of the things I talked a lot about in my IoT work with the Department of Commerce. And, stuff like the mirror in your car has a camera in it that, because it's connected to the internet, that people can look and see what you're doing or what's happening around your car. Most people don't know that, and they don't like that once they find out. So the fact that the things that they want to do is being imbued with so much kind of data collection and surveillance. People don't like that, right? And so the problems that companies have is that they're supposed to be transparent about that and they're not, and people get super pissed off about it. And so,
oh my God.
Next thing you know, people will be putting cameras in their cars, right, Leonard?
Yeah, here, and I got one there staring at me.
Debbie,
It'll bug me if I'm not paying attention to my driving. So,
Debbie, are you saying that secretly all or some or many cars on the road today secretly have a camera in the rearview mirror?
Yes. And inside the car also, that you don't know about.
I'm going to take apart my rearview mirror now and find out.
From your 73 Gremlin, is that
download? If your car has an app, download it and see all the stuff that you can do.
I don't think your 73 Gremlin has that feature.
Okay, thank God for that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right.
We say this on the show all the time because we are kind of a prepper show for the AI apocalypse. And so we do say, make sure you have at least one vehicle in your household from the previous century that is fully mechanical.
That's right.
It will come in handy.
Seriously.
I love to see people at those classic car shows, and just, first of all, the cars are really beautiful, but I'm thinking, wow, kind of like off the grid, sort of. So it's great.
Analog, man. It's all analog.
Off the grid cars.
By the way, I do have a related tech topic. And one of the things I saw in Taiwan, and actually I see this from folks in the edge AI community too, is there's a lot more surveillance, or I wouldn't say surveillance, but there's a lot more sensing going on without cameras. So rather than using a camera and a visual sensor, you're using audio, using AI against audio patterns, you're using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi radio signals to detect occupancy. Of rooms,
or like the RFID, those, something that's a postage stamp size. If you walk past it with a device, it gets activated. Right, exactly.
So I think people are inventing lots of ways to detect what's happening. We see it in environmental sensing all the time too, like outdoor, detecting water quality and anti-poaching and, lots of good use cases, agriculture, right? But you're not using the camera necessarily anymore.
Right.
You're using other sensors to do anomaly detection, pattern, kind of machine learning on the patterns to do that. So I think we're going to see a lot more. Oh, we lost. Hopefully that was just a network connection issue, Leonard, not a serious road accident.
His rearview mirror camera, where it's
Right. It was shut down by ice.
Yeah, he got shut down,
But this alternative sensing thing is really interesting, and we're seeing lots of companies. There's Leonard knows Sensors Converge is coming up in the end of June in the Bay Area. And there's going to be lots of folks there with environmental sensors and audio sensing and vibration and other things where you can kind of really detect now a lot of what's happening out there without a camera, cameras are expensive. And Debbie said there's privacy issues. If you want occupancy, you don't need a camera. You can do it like 3 or 4 different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of companies have been over the years developing a lot of technology where they can sense devices and people without a camera, because they know that has more, for traditional laws, that has more kind of legal background around,
totally. Like we saw
stopping and stuff. Yeah.
Leonard, we saw the Inotera neuromorphic chip with the radar thing. They had some cool stuff in their booth.
That was cool. Yeah.
Like 10-year battery life, peel and stick,
Yeah.
occupancy sensor thing that was, dual
Wow.
use cameras. Really cool. So,
No, that's awesome.
so you will be tracked whether you want it or not.
So I have a question. We've been talking about all this dystopian stuff here. I wonder if we should create our own dystopian thing here, and maybe it'll be picked up by the broader media and it'll go viral. You know how there's the countdown clock to, the nuclear countdown clock to whatever apocalypse, and we're however many seconds or minutes away from midnight, that kind of thing. They've had that. Anyway, what if we have our own countdown clock to the AI apocalypse?
Oh my God.
We could do that, yeah.
And on our show, we say, how many minutes away are we
midnight
from midnight of the AI apocalypse?
I think we're past midnight. We just haven't.
And I'm going to have to go on mute for a second because somebody's coming to my door. I'll be back.
Okay. Well, I think that's
concerning. I think the concern for me is not, people are kind of obsessed with the idea about, AI taking over, which, is possible they can do that. But I think the thing that frightens me more and what we're dealing with now is people thinking the AI can do more than it can, right? So you're giving it more authority than it should have, that to do things that it can't do. So like companies, for example, firing people because they think AI is going to do the job, and they're figuring out it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
So you're creating harm based on this false notion that AI can do more than it can do. And to me, I'm more frightened about what that means right now than, the evil robot taking over, which that can happen too. So
there's also this this agentic AI challenge where, Leonard's talked about this too. Like we have core AI, like generative AI, is can be riddled with errors in terms of what it's saying. And then if you turn it into agentic AI where it can actually activate things and do things, I saw someone was talking about, we actually just had a generative AI live stream this past week, it's 8 hours of live stream talks about generative AI and the edge, which is really cool. So YouTube channel, but someone was talking about using agentic AI with airline agents and who boards the plane when, and there's all these different people communicating and different, and having an AI agentic system take over that. And it's sort of like that all sounds great, assuming that all the data is accurate and everyone's, but once you have AI agents sort of taking action on data that's maybe not accurate, then things can go south.
Yeah. And you know what? Like when I was at RSAC, one of the biggest discussion topics was not just data posture, but just in general, how bad data is. And you have these guys going around shilling AI, making it sound like it's some sort of magic. And, having no idea of what it takes to actually get to a level of data quality and also data security in order to realize an effective and safe AI application. These disconnects are the things that are more problematic than the technology itself. The technology is the technology. What's more frightening is the misapplication of technology. It's just like the nuclear energy, right? You can either make a bomb and let it off, or you can go and try to harness it and provide power for a city, right? But it's what's really frightening is the scale of misapplication, and that's what ultimately is going to cause the sort of this critical mass of catastrophe at some point. That countdown to the AI apocalypse, but it's all human made. It's people. The AI, it's just going, okay, I hallucinate, I drift, I decline over time. I have all these problems.
People.
don't blame me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't blame AI. We can only blame ourselves.
Yeah. So the sooner we can replace humans with AI, the better. It sounds like.
Well, no. Well, I think, I don't know
Don't
if you
give
guys.
AI any funny ideas, man.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It was with the Zoom AI listening. I didn't.
Yes. I think, I know you guys have heard the statistic where people say that companies only use like a very small, really utilize only a very small percentage of the data that they have, right? And so people use that to say, oh, well, we can have AI and you can use like a higher percentage of your data. But what they're not saying and what Leonard is trying to say is that stuff is trash. It's trash. Like a lot of the data that people have is garbage.
Yeah,
so when you throw that into those systems and you're making decisions on trash, all you're going to get is more garbage.
I want your photo like out on the internet, Debbie. Your tagline should be like "Your data is trash" or something like that. You know, it's like people forgot when we were just doing plain old machine learning that actually may have value as opposed to this generative thing. What did we always say? Data engineering is 80% of the job. Good, clean data, missing values, all that stuff. If you don't do that, then don't expect anything good on the other side. Why are we magically thinking with generative AI that it's just a free-for-all and
it'll discern the good and bad data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, all that being said, okay, generative AI as a novel form of AI can be helpful in cleaning up some of the data, right? But it still needs eyes and ears to review and orchestrate that whole process. And this is where people are just simply losing it, right? So yeah, it has utility, unfortunately.
Yeah.
AI boom, there is no real AI boom. You can't quantify it. I mean, Google having to pay Samsung and Apple for placement for Gemini on iOS and what do you call it? One UI. That's not that's a flip. That's reverse.
Right.
You're subsidizing AI. So I wrote a piece on that. AI is subsidized. That doesn't mean there's a revolution. What it means is that we have a supercomputing revolution. And it just happens that there are these dubious AI projects and workloads that haven't found figured out how to be monetized, that are creating this perception of AI demand. That's not true, right? Demand means that someone is willing to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? And
that they're going to get some type of value out of it.
Yeah, not that it's subsidized, right? I mean, anybody is going to have. You give something for free, we'll take it. But obviously they're gonna be monetizing using an ad model, right? They're gonna go back to the premium model, which is we know is going to continue to perpetuate and deepen this whole surveillance economy that we're starting to model for ourselves with AI.
Let me this issue of data sets. I'll plug a little startup that I heard of recently that actually joined our Edge AI Foundation community called Be Simple, BE Simple. Ex Microsoft, ex Meta, Yi Zhang. She started this company, and they use generative AI to clean data sets and get data sets.
That's a good use.
I was like, that is pretty cool. Pretty cool. So yes, like you're right, Leonard. Like like the application of this stuff to create cleaner data, better data sets. So yeah, they're pre-seed, by the way. Be Simple. So if there's any VCs listening.
Yeah, but you have to be very careful. A buddy of mine, he used ChatGPT to pump out a really complex model in Excel for a project he was working on. And he pings me and says, "Oh my God, this thing saved me 2 to 3 hours. I might have to change my mind about ChatGPT, right?" Then he started looking at the calculations and realized a few of them were wrong. Then he realized there was a lot wrong. So Later on the week, he pings me back and he goes, dude, this thing is crap. I just had to spend 13 hours going through an entire cycle of figuring out what ChatGPT screwed up and having to realize I have to redo all of this work. So I actually wasted 12 to 14 hours. So, and I was, when he told me, wow, this thing is like really cool, I was like questioning my doubts about ChatGPT, but only, to have my suspicion sustained when he came back and said, dude, I just wasted 12 to 14 hours and he had to redo everything.
Did you tell him that he was holding it wrong? That's usually.
But no, you know what I'm saying is even in those exercises, you need to test, you need to do all these fundamental things that have always been part of. Yeah, and so it doesn't replace the process. It can be used as a tool for specific things that you can prove as a practitioner that it works in a reliable way.
But also
otherwise, it will jack everything up.
Right. But isn't that the concept behind mixture of experts? MOE is that you've got now AI models sort of validating and checking. So the reasoning now in some of the newer models will hopefully reduce the percentage of error through a mixture.
I mean, I would never ask it to do anything that I didn't know how to do. Because then it gives you the perception that is right. And
what if you ask three different, you ask, Claude and ChatGPT and, Llama, all three of the same question. And then you kind of saw the answers and then you came up with an answer out of those three. It's kind of what MOE is like kind of.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that also assumes that it knows what the right answer is, which I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it could be 0 for 3. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rob and I talked about MOE last week. Mixture expert is basically just a collection of experts. For instance, DeepSeek has over 200 experts, right? Smaller models that are fine-tuned for a specific domain, right? And then you have an orchestrator, a model that basically, it takes the initial requests coming in or prompts, and then it figures out which experts do I need to go to, and then all of that gets parsed out into a quote unquote better response, right, for that prompt. It's still one shot, but then now you have reasoning models where it's recursive, right? So you've probably heard of all this talk about KV cache and stuff like that. Maybe not. This is all about having automating the prompting process. So, this long thinking concept, it's really automating multi-shot versus single shot, right? And the hope there is that these models can, through sort of an agentic mechanism, simulate thinking, long thinking, right? But all you're really doing is you're taking one prompt, results, feeding that into another prompt, and then so if you have like hallucinations, you're just compounding them. You know what I'm saying? And so there is no proof that these things are actually better. They can think, they functionally can do certain things that a single shot a prompt can't do. But in effect, what you're doing is you are this whole idea of chain of thought, you're chaining prompts and responses together, right?
Yeah, and that still doesn't mean that the source data that they used was true or right?
Yeah, that's a totally different problem. That's at the bottom level, that's totally foundational. So you're absolutely right. That's why it's still, they say, hey, who gives a crap about foundational model training or pre-training? Oh, that still matters a lot because whoever has the best foundation models, right, they're going to win because they're going to have less crappy reasoning models, right?
Yeah.
And it has a huge multiplicative effect in terms of quality and efficacy and efficiency. There's like a whole field of implications that actually largely are not talked about and not known because it's just so new.
You know what? I think I have to bring us back to the Matrix again. And I think what's missing here is what we had in yesteryear, back in olden times, which is a librarian, someone who curates information. And so that's what I think we're missing, because not every bit of information is not true or right or appropriate, right? And so you really needed someone at that curation layer to help guide. And so that's what I feel like we're missing in the AI age. And so it made me think of the architect actually in the
Rob,
Matrix.
that's
Basically
Rob.
like a librarian, basically.
The first version of the Matrix was sublime. It was a tremendous failure. It was too perfect. Humans wouldn't accept the program. They need suffering to make it seem.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine a dystopian movie called The Librarian?
I'm down with it.
Oh my God.
Like this whole thing happens, the AI apocalypse happens, and then the librarian was like the key person through the whole deal. And that's kind of like, like in Blade Runner 2049, because they had an EMP that wiped out all the data. But remember, there was a library with actually hard copies. That was the only knowledge that survived. So when you guys are all excited about digital transformation, be careful. You might want some stuff on paper somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, like Mission Impossible, the whatever Reckoning, right? Yeah. Remember that mass scramble to basically print out all the data?
Print. Put it in Iron Mountain.
Low letter.
Yeah. No, that could come. Yeah. Wow. Leonard, I hope the name of the paper that you wrote was called like AI ... the subsidized pseudo revolution or whatever, artificial revolution.
That's, you know what? I should have conferred with you beforehand. No, I called it the subsidized state of generative AI monetization is what I called it.
Now you need to work on your link bait and,
Yeah, I do. I got to use you, man. I got to consult you. That's awesome.
I'm sure there's some Matrix sayings or quotes in there you can throw in there that would be very appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to be a little semi-professional, Rob. That's why.
Borderline.
Yeah, but you're right. We have to resort to those measures these days just because clickbait is now clickbait titles are becoming a necessity, right? Because it's just standard fare these days, right?
Yeah. Right.
Just have an outrageous title for your article, and then your article will have nothing to do with whatever it is that your title suggests. So
trick them into reading it. You have to trick them into reading it.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
Right. Interesting. I've been seeing some new and improved. I don't know if it's improved or not. Mark Andreessen videos of, I've seen stuff where he's like, make all the money you can in the next 5 years, and then it's all over, related to AI. And then I saw another one just recently where he was like saying the price of everything's going to go to zero or a penny or whatever, like everything in the economy, everything's going to be so easy and cheap and free.
So says the billionaire from Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't even know how much eggs cost.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to zero. Isn't it zero already? I'm not sure. How much is milk? 20. How much can a banana be? $9?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I that was like one of the dumbest. I actually responded to somebody who posted that, and I said, has this guy ever actually worked in any industry other than building a web browser? And what other other than his VC, what are other claims to fame that he has that
that's good.
A product or something like that?
Hopefully you learn from all your portfolio companies over the years, but you never know. You never know.
Failing up is a thing.
It is. Failing up is a thing. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I should have learned better than that.
All right. Who wants to take us out?
Well, let's see here. I'll give it a go. So we've had another wonderful hour of talk, and we've gotten a little bit of a scenic drive of San Diego through Leonard's back window, which is fantastic. But
blur it all out.
There you go, with Debbie and Rob and Leonard and myself. But this is about taking it back to elevate our kids, making sure that you donate so that more and more people can get and kids can get connected and get educated. Because without education, yeah, as you can see from this conversation, we're just making shit up. So you got to get educated.
Get educated.
Elevate our kids. So buy some gear, throw in $50. It's not a big deal. So that's the big thing. And other than that, I hope that everyone enjoys whatever good weather is coming your way, depending on where you live. And tune in next time, same bat channel, and we'll see you then.
All right. We'll see you on the other side.
Adios.
See you in the Matrix.
Yes, Matrix.